many are still grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective Podcast, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating and not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. I'm Jo Sparrow, president of Jigsaw Queensland and the host of Adopt Perspective. Welcome back. We're going to be listening now to the second half of Nadia Levett's story. When we stopped recording last time, we just heard about when Nadia had run away as a teenager and had voiced that her adoption was the reason that she'd run away. And the Department of Child Services suggested to her parents that they tell her that she had biological siblings. Let's hear more from Nadia.
But yeah, Mum, when I came back, Mum and Dad were just in a complete panic. They had this sort of intervention as well with a whole bunch of my family and friends and people in the street and a teacher at the school, and they sat me down and they said, "Why did you do it?" And all that came out was because I'm adopted. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know how to even explain that. I don't even think at the time I even knew there was no words going on except that I was adopted. And so then they called docs again. They were like, "What is going on? How do we help this child?" No, how do we help her? And they said, "Tell her she has 2 half sisters and a half brother." And that just settled me right down. I think I was I think the running away was just an indication of something needs to happen. Like I need to maybe I need to know a bit more about my family on that side without actually saying I need to know about my family. It was just an action rather than through words. So my parents did the right thing. They took me on a holiday. And I was on a boat and there was dolphins. We're at Nelson Bay and there were dolphins going. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, the dolphins." And I was on the bow of the boat, the front of it. And my dad came up and sat down. And that's when he told me that I had these siblings. And it was just...
Had they known Nadia before that, or
No.
So they hadn't known either. Wow.
They hadn't known.
Yeah. Sorry, he sat down next to you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he sat down and he just said, I want to tell you that you've got family. You've got 2 younger sisters and a younger brother. And I was like, whoa, like this is so cool. Like this is, oh my gosh, it's like new information, new layer to my identity. It was a real great thing. And they said, "Would you like to meet them?" And I just said, "Yeah, of course I would love to meet." Oh my gosh. And because I was an only child, so I was craving brothers and sisters like my whole, till that point. And the fact that I had actual ones from like my blood was just like, yeah, crazy. And then they said, "And guess what? They live in the next suburb to where we live." Like Guymer. Like, so I live in Yowie Bay. So got me in the middle, Caringbah is one way and Guymer is like the other way. It's like 10 minutes either side. And I just went, this is outrageous. And then I was so desperate to meet them, excited, curious. I was nervous. And I wanted to just get there and see them straight away. They were quite young. They were, I think, only like 8 or 9. They're 1 year apart. Yeah. It was
So what was it like to meet them for the first time?
It was my mum drove because I was 15 and my mum drove and I just remember just turning the corner and just seeing these two little bodies on the side of the curb and then they're just like jumping. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then their dad came out and just that it's just such a it feels like time just slows down a lot when you're so viscerally in the present moment that the time is it's sort of like a woo, it's like an amoeba, it's like spreads out. And just me getting out of the car was just like so um it took seemed to take so long to just get to them. And yeah, and then I was just introduced myself and they were a bit shy, they were very shy. And I hugged them and I was just, looking for similarities straight away and just felt this overwhelming sort of feeling of a mixture of joy and excitement and love and apprehension and just wanting to get to know them and look after them. Like actually, and then it'd be like, I'm the older sister now. I'm like the older sister. So I sort of felt this, yeah, over time I felt this extreme sense of responsibility and obligation to look after them and their welfare. Um, and so I sort of made that happen. When I could drive, I would spend a lot of my weekends with them. They'd come over to our house, swim in the pool. I'd take them to the movies. Um, I would pick them up after sort of my sporting practice, and I would take them home every Tuesday night, and Mum would cook us up some dinner and then take them back. And we celebrated birthdays and my mum would buy them birthday gifts and Easter eggs. So she was very inclusive in the whole process. But as I got a little bit older, like maybe when I turned 18, I would say to them, I would be there at a certain time and I wouldn't get there till like 3 hours or 4 hours later. Which, yeah, looking back, that wasn't great on my part. I think, yeah, there was some times where they would just wait for hours out the front, and and that seems sad now that they would that yeah, putting myself in their shoes, the fact that they would just wait and wait and wait and wait for me to arrive so I could take them out and get them in the car and they could, feel the air and just, kind of go wild, really. Like we were all just like these wild kids in the car. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, over time they became yeah, my closest family and I just loved every minute of it. I loved being there and looking after them as much as possible. Um, as they got older, um, there were some challenges that started surfacing. So one of my sisters was expelled from high school. Um, and I just jumped in and just tried to help. I approached a new school and met with the principal there and bought uniforms and tried to get her back on track. I sort of acted as a parent in those moments. So there was moments where I was sort of in that role, and then there was, the older sister role, and then sometimes I'd just be sort of quite distant from the whole experience because I was quite young and just trying to deal with my own stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then I just realized that doing that was a good thing, but at the same time it came with challenges because um, of just the way they grew up. Their environment was completely different to mine, and her getting to school would have been an issue. Um, her the kids that she was fighting with were at that school, and I didn't know. So she only lasted one term there, and just thinking about it, like, and having no mother figure in their life and no regular kind of like making lunches and emotional support and doing that, like it, I didn't factor any of that in. All I thought
Mm.
was, okay, get her to another school, da da da. And you know, it was great that she lasted a full term. But she just couldn't logistically, she just couldn't get there. The distance was quite long from
Mm.
her other school where her home was. And anyway, yeah, so it was, yeah, just
Yeah.
quite a realization that yeah, with one parent and not having a mother figure, and me just kind of tapping in and out wasn't enough for them. So there were quite a few barriers around when they were teenagers, and I honestly did everything that I could. Um, and
You're so young, Nadia, and I've heard you say that you felt such a, well, you said today you feel such a responsibility towards them, and you even wanted to adopt them when you were just a teenager. But you were so young. But it's also interesting to me how much you did want to give them something that you didn't have for a long time, and and that you could empathize with that and wanted to give it all to them.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I tried to just be as inclusive as possible, but also keep a distance.
Hmm.
And yeah, they when I was sort of spending time with them, um, I was still quite non-verbal. Like I was just experiencing everything through action and events,
Hmm.
and I wasn't. It was just nothing. I didn't really process too much. I didn't have the skills to kind of problem solve in the way that they needed. Yeah, I think there's so much, just little things like I think they yeah, there's so much that I yeah to unpack, but I'll just I'll keep going. So I during that time that I caught up with them, um I also reconnected with my birth mum's sisters and cousins, and then I kind of organized and brought everyone together. Um, and we also met my birth mum's mum, and there was like a sort of like a family reunion on that side. But then, sadly, both the sisters passed away from breast cancer soon after that we kind of reconnected. Um, and the contact sort of has just sort of naturally faded away. So I still do message my cousins sometimes when they hit certain milestones, so getting married and having kids and stuff. And I do plan to reconnect with them properly in the future. But back to my sisters. There was yeah. So one of my so one I spoke about. The other one had a child at 16. She was pregnant at 16, 17, and she also ran away from home. And for the next sort of 10 years, I was sort of really deeply involved in looking after her and her son on like weekends so she could work in hospitality,
Hmm.
and helping her kind of get out of a cycle of she didn't want to sort of get money from the dole or anything. She didn't want to rely on Centrelink. She wanted to break the cycle of poverty and wanted to yeah, really make some changes in her life and yeah, and she just wanted she wanted to independence. So I tried to very much factor in, yeah, looking after him on weekends. So it would have been like maybe one weekend a month and then school holidays. And then he's come on holidays with us as well. And um yeah, but both of them are doing great now. So that's kind of what I wanted to say is that they still have challenges, but um yeah, I hope that I've, you know, I'm hoping that yeah, I've helped them in some way, shape, or form to just get where they need to be and want to be.
Yeah. You met your brother later on. Um, how did that happen, and how would you describe your relationship with him today?
Yeah, so I again for the first time I took my sisters with me as well. So I just sort of would take them everywhere. I'd be like, "You're
Hmm.
coming and visiting my mum," like so I met my birth mum and met the family and met Dylan, my brother. And we all were reunited, and he's younger as well, so he's 3 years younger than my younger sister. Um, so he would have been, I don't know, maybe he's still in primary school when we first met. And he has, in his family unit, he has an adopted sister as well. So he was adopted, and he's got an adopted sister from another sort of set of circumstances. Um, and yeah, so I connected with them in my early 20s. And over the years, it's just been on and off, but it's just always been meaningful contact. Um, my sisters and Dylan, they get along well. They get along quite well. And when he got married a few years ago, and one of my sisters and I was invited to be a signatory. Um, for his wedding, and he has two kids now, and I have had chances. I've had the chance to get to know them and his wife, and she's just gorgeous. So we probably see each other, catch up maybe once a year, and he's been down where we are and stayed with us while he was down here, and he's also come down when we reconnected with Jackie. Um, and I've taken him. The first time he met Jackie was with me, so I had asked him if he would like to meet her for the first time, and he said yes, and that was in maybe 2020. And we went down to Shell Harbour Hospital, and he visited her for the first time down there.
Hmm.
Um, and Yeah, so it's all quite. Oh, he's also a DJ, and he has done the music for my podcast as well.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. So
My
he
son did
creates
the
all the
music.
jingles and yeah.
My son did the music for my podcast.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I love all the in-house stuff. Yeah.
Well, it makes it a bit more special too, doesn't it?
Does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
So and he it has connected us sort of a little bit in a creative sense, because he's so creative and amazing, and he plays piano by ear, and I found out like I play piano by ear. So that was kind of like oh wow, that's like a weird similarity that we have.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're always naturally finding, more things to add that enhance and keep you connected to that
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Absolutely. So reconnecting with your biological mother, Jackie, has been a long and emotionally complex journey. Can you share what that first meeting was like for you? And obviously, she's not been completely out of your life the whole way through, but coming back as an older person, reconnecting.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely emotional. Well, it seems like it's emotional, but for some reason, and maybe you have this too, where you can somehow compartmentalize the emotion of it all. So, I mean,
Hmm.
you don't necessarily the emotions are there, but I don't really tap into it. You're more just like a fly on a wall, or observational, especially when I was 19 when I first met her. So it was just all witnessing and observing, and not much processing, just sort of like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. All right, this is so different to my life, and might maybe a bit of a shock to the system. But
Hmm.
so I first met her, and I brought my sisters with me. We were told that by their father. Um, I'd had a conversation with him, and he said, "Oh, sometimes Jackie comes in and out, like, you know, really randomly. She would just pop up at their house and stay with them for a few days and cause an absolute chaos at the house because she's obviously unwell." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, next time she comes, can you ask her where she's living?" And then, sure enough, she came, and he said, "Oh, he told me she lives in Cronulla." And he said, "But the best time to see her would be after she's had a meal at church on a Sunday. So I don't think she would even go into the church, but she would go and eat there because, they provide, the church provides sort of, stuff for the community, and she would go there. And if she's eaten, then the best behavior is probably after she's had a meal, like she'd be the most kind of relaxed. Um, so I asked my sisters if they want to see her, and I said, might be a time that she would be maybe nice and friendly, and she'd see me, and I'll protect you. Um, and they said, yep. And so Sunday afternoon, we parked outside the church and waited for the people to just filter out of the church. And I saw the minister at the front of the church on the driveway shaking hands with people, and I was just parked out the front just watching. And um, I just got out of the car and I left my sisters in the car, and I approached him and shook his hand, and I said, "Oh, do you know a Jackie?" And said the last name. And he said, "Oh no, I haven't seen her today." And he said, "Sorry, yeah, haven't seen her." And then he said, "Oh, but do you know that she lives across the road there?" And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, maybe you should try there." And I just wasn't sure. I was like, "Oh, this is not what was going to be the plan. The plan was that she was going to eat and that she would be around people and kind of be on her best behavior, really." Um, and yeah, I asked my sisters, and I said, "Oh," they didn't know. They just went like, like they were like 9 and 10. They were just like they were just kind of a bit ambivalent with the whole experience. I think they liked the safety of being in my car as well. But for me, I was like, she is right there. She is literally right there across the road. Oh my God, this is like, I have to see her. So I said, come on, let's go. Let's go and see her. And I had no idea what to expect. But as soon as we crossed the road, um, a police van and came pulling up, screeching around the corner, and parked in the driveway. And because it was a housing commission, you weren't too sure. It wasn't like a freestanding home where it was like, oh wow, he's parked in her driveway. It was like, oh, he's parked in the set of apartments where she is, not knowing that later on it was actually something was going down in her house at the time. And so I was naturally curious. And so we were like hiding behind these bushes, and the sun was going down. It wasn't as kind of balmy and nice as it was. It was just like it was getting dark, and I was like, we're like hiding, um and then I could hear a voice saying, like screaming and yelling. And then the police went up and they were banging on the door, and um yeah, and they were yelling, and they burst open the door, and then they were like, put the knife down, Jackie." So they knew her. They said, put the knife down, Jackie." And then I just like my heart just dropped. I was just like, oh, that's her in there, and something's happening, like something's going down. And there was a man in there, and they grabbed him and they arrested him and they shoved him in the paddy wagon in the back. And then we were just kind of stunned. But then we started laughing. We just started laughing with the whole thing because I don't know. I think we've naturally done that where, you're kind of confronted with a real awkward, weird situation, and you just start laughing to just like blow off a bit of steam because you don't know what else to do. Um, and then we waited and we waited. The police left and we waited, and I was like, oh, like, do we go up? And then I decided to go up and knock on the door. There was no one answering. They were at the bottom of the stairs, by the way. So I would walked up, and they were both hiding, like with their heads behind like the brick. And And I didn't know, I mean, at the time what they had gone through. Like they had gone through a period of like her coming in and out of their lives, and every time she was in their life, it was like chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, they were scared, but I, they were probably at the same time reassured that I was there. I'd have to ask them actually about this whole scenario because they might have a complete different experience. I'm just kind of filling in now as an adult what it would have been like for them. Um, so yeah, she opened the door and she's tiny, 45 kilos, frail, hair just like long and shriveled and dry and just didn't, yeah, didn't recognize her, like didn't recognize her as someone that would be related to me at all. Just dark brown hair, dark brown skin, dark brown eyes. Like her skin's quite leathery, like no teeth. Um, she, yeah, smelled like cigarettes and alcohol and like that musty smell when you get of an old brick building.
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't recognize me at first. And then I'd pointed to the girls. I was like, oh, hi. And I opened the fly screen door and she kind of came out. And then and I pointed to the girls and she looked down at the girls and so she recognized the girls and then straight away she just like recognized me and was just like, oh my gosh. And then there was like this real moment for her. I was sort of frozen. I didn't really, there was no emotion for me. It was just sort of, I was just experiencing. But she definitely was very quite emotional with that experience. And then I did not tell anyone about this story until about a few years ago. So I didn't tell my mom, my dad, like nobody. Nobody knew about like all of this stuff going on in this side of my life. I had just sort of just just didn't even, it was like I was unaffected or I was, yeah, I just hadn't processed it properly. Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to process. And like, I totally get what you're saying about being not emotionally in the moment at those. Because even like, I met my mother when I was 19 and um, I wrote about it and I said, it's like I had my heart in a bag next to me. And
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
yeah, so I was very disconnected in the moment. And I have to say, I probably feel in that same space every time I have a connection. I'm never emotionally there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely severed. It's definitely
Yeah.
severed. And probably in
Yeah.
a good way too. It means probably our bodies just
No, it's
not,
protective, isn't it?
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Which I'm grateful for. I think
Mm.
wow, great. Good on you, body, for doing that because if I had have been emotionally invested, I'd be pretty affected, like pretty
Mm-hmm.
messed up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so glad that my body is doing that for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you actually took on responsibility of being Jackie's next of kin at just 22. What was that period like for you?
Well, I didn't actually understand what next of kin meant. It was just like, oh, do you want to be Jackie's next of kin? Oh, okay. Well, we've got to give her your mobile number and but yeah, didn't really know what that meant, other than just calls started flooding in, just multiple calls all the time. Reverse charge from a payphone was always how she would call me. Um, and she's got quite a distinct voice over the phone, like it's really harsh. It's like, I can't do it if I tried. But it's quite coarse and a very direct and abrupt and quite rough. So
Mm,
so yeah, so hearing her call and then accepting the call, just automatically just goes, oh, okay, all right,
mm-hmm.
got to deal with this. Um, but so I was 22, and then not long after that, I went overseas for 2 years. So the phone calls stopped. But I did actually go to the police station and say to them, hey, like, what do I do? She's just calling too much. And they couldn't do anything really. They didn't really know why I was probably at the station, but I didn't know I didn't know what else to do. Um,
Mm,
and they didn't even say, oh, block her number or anything. Yeah, so it's just interesting looking back. Um, so I went overseas, so then the phone calls obviously stopped. One time she wanted me to pick her up and drive her down to Wollongong, um, which I didn't do. Um, but yeah, the phone calls just threw me. Yeah, I just
Mm.
didn't expect that. And then I said to mum, oh, I'm her next of kin. What, like, actually, I don't even think I said that. I think I said, she's got my number. And mum said, don't, don't you dare tell her where we live. And I was like, oh, and I didn't even bother asking why. I just was like, oh, okay, all right. And I was like, and I realized, okay, this is serious. Um,
Mm.
yeah. Anyway, but yeah. And then I came back, and then I didn't hear from her for a really long time after that.
Yeah. There's so much vulnerability and courage in how you've approached that relationship with Jackie, and I'm just wondering what you learnt about yourself through it all.
Um, I'm not sure what I've. I think there's an element of sort of um care and consideration, and knowing her situation is is very challenging for her and complicated. And I just want to get to know her as much as possible and see her well. And I think it's definitely given me a side of the world that hardly anybody else sees,
Mm.
with mental health and homelessness and um, meeting her in these places. They're like not, you know, um, the houses that she was being put in are just, and the way she would be living in those houses. It's just it's very confronting, but at the same time, I just have quite a bit of empathy, and it's just I find it yeah quite sad, but at the same time, she because she doesn't really know her condition, she's like happy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just an interesting thing that for someone to live in that sort of those kind of circumstances, but then they're just sort of can just keep living the way they live, and that they are finding happiness amongst it all as well. Um, yeah, I remember, yeah, just seeing her a few years ago in a halfway house, and yeah, it was just before I got her into the hospital. She was in the hospital for 2 years, and she hadn't the landlord hadn't had told me that she hadn't has never washed her sheets, and that she has been living there for 8 years.
Mm.
And you could see the outline of her body on her bed. And then one of the people that was living in the halfway house had said, had called me because she didn't have a phone. She didn't know how to use a phone. She didn't have one of her own, so she would borrow. And so he had my number, and he called up and he said, she's just non-stop yelling from like 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., just yelling. And yeah, so I've experienced her um, stories of her like when she's hallucinating and going through these times, and I've also experienced it firsthand of her hallucinating. And yeah, and I mean that I wrote an article actually on Mamma Mia about one scenario, which was recent. Um, so yeah, I think I don't know, maybe because I do have that ability to not process it fully or not have the emotional, like I've kind of converted into action. Maybe maybe because I've had such a great upbringing that I have the capacity to give back, and I want to do that because it makes me feel it gives more meaning to my life that, that someone suffering like that is actually that they have someone that is c continually contacting them despite what's happened.
Mm.
My brother also connects in with her, but my two sisters, I'm not sure. I don't think they do, and that's completely understandable because they've had such a different experience. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
You've described feeling like you've had to manage not just your own experience, but other people's emotional reactions to it, which is something I've heard many times from adopted people. Uh, how has that affected the way that you share your story today?
yeah, so in my early 20s, when I did sometimes open up to friends, they would ask, "Oh, what are you doing on the weekend?" I say, "Oh, I'm hanging out with my sisters." And I was so proud to just say that. I was just so, oh my gosh, I've got sisters and oh my gosh, I get to hang out with them. Um, I never really voiced anything other than like great experiences, even though I witnessed and would observe what was going on, and I never kind of could pass all of that onto someone else. But when I did, I quickly learned just to keep it short and simple and avoid going too deep into my experiences, just simply
Mm,
because I just don't. I think their reaction was like, oh, 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 but they also then couldn't provide like what I needed anyway, like because they just weren't living there was no relatability there. So my friends, even though they supported me and loved me, and they were still so far removed from that world that I was sort of starting to experience. And so I just never really opened up to
mhm,
anyone. But yeah, when I did, it was like this kind of almost overreaction, but then not really knowing what to say. So then I just thought, oh, there's no real point to sharing. I just sort of kept kind of compartmentalizing and just keeping worlds separate and
mhm,
trying to do it on my own. And also my adoptive parents, I just I didn't include them in any of this either. They were removed as well. I sort of almost took it head on, just on my own. I never told them any of the problems that was going on.
Why was that? Was there a sense of divided loyalty or protection
I
or?
don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. I think I've always just had in my mind growing up like there's two worlds, and to
Mhm,
merge them was quite is diff it doesn't feel comfortable, or maybe I wanted like to assert some sort of independence and ownership and agency over my own story that I didn't want my
mm,
adoptive parents to kind of funnel in, and like I wanted to maybe trust my own intuition and guide myself and be that adult in the dynamic. And even though I didn't tell any of this to my mum and dad, I definitely learned from them through other ways. So, the way that they showed love and kindness towards me, that action and that guidance and mentorship, I just then that's how I learned, and then I tried to relay that onto my sisters, and
mhm,
so that I used to have a lot of phone conversations with um, one of my sisters in particular, and in that kind of counseling role, and I really loved being that type of person for her.
mhm. What's helped you make sense of all of these experiences, Nadia?
Um, what's helped me make sense of it?
And I
Um,
know that's a loaded question because it's an ongoing making sense of it. Like that making sense of it in my life continues. And I'm 53. It's going to keep going.
yeah. Um, I don't know if I'm sort of trying to forcefully make sense of it. I think it's just kind of I'm unraveling as I go, and I'm gathering information, and I'm letting go of some things, and I'm holding on to others, and I'm, writing in journals and making sense of it that way. But then I'm also um, letting go in other ways, like through getting, deep diving into yoga and looking at different healing modalities and looking online through YouTube videos of, mental illness. And I just have this such a fascination with um, people who have schizophrenia or have bipolar, and watching them and observing them, and reading about it. And so yeah, in recent years I've kind of gone a bit hardcore with, I guess, yeah, making sense of it, but also trying to having the ability to let go as well, because a lot of this stuff can be quite painful, and sometimes you can feel a sense of helplessness, or depressed, or um, working out what your purpose is. And so it can be very heavily weighted. So yeah, I've had to try and balance, yeah, the art of making sense and the art of also just letting go and not being too attached and tied into the story.
Yeah. So you started your own podcast back in 2021, the Australian Adoption Podcast. What inspired that?
Okay, so I'll go back to 2018 when my adoptive father, he passed away, and that was an 8 month sort of battle in the hospital. And once the funeral happened, I was like, okay, that's right, I can start to look after myself, because it was just very much, all in, and you kind of just drop your own needs for that person. And then it was probably just a little bit too late. I'd lost a lot of weight. Um, I wasn't sleeping. My cortisol levels were really high. I um, decided to, yeah, it was affecting my job. So they gave me 6 months off. And I went to the doctors initially for some sleeping tablets, and the sleeping tablets weren't working. And then I went back, and I said, I need something stronger. And then they kind of sat me down and said, why, what's going on? And then obviously it just came out. And then I got diagnosed with bipolar. So for that whole year, they I was under the assumption that I had this condition and it was going to be lifelong and incurable, and I would be on medication for the rest of my life. And so I started taking antipsychotics and lithium, and having blood tests every week, and then every month, and every second month, and every third month. And I'd had psychologists, and I was doing CBT therapy, and I had a counselor through work, plus my doctor. It was just rough. It was really
Mm.
rough. And then I tapped into the yoga space. I ended up doing some training, yoga teacher training, and I was very unhinged. I don't even know, I should have been kicked out of those classes, because I was just not coping. It was like maybe a month after he passed away. And but I really wanted to just tap into myself and some healing. I was doing a lot of yoga, like the classes, and I was starting to access my emotional, what was going on inside. Like I would do particular poses, like that open up the hips, which releases
Hmm.
a lot of emotions, and I would just
Mm.
cry, and I would just cry and cry and cry. And I'm not a crier. I hardly ever cry. I don't, yeah. So this was quite unusual, and I was like, okay. And then but a year later, I decided I don't have bipolar. I just don't have it. I went through grief and suffering, and so I went off the medication. I got heavily into yoga, but I was still grieving heavily, and I was in a both dark and light place, because I was experiencing symptoms of mania, and I was out of reality. Like I was 90% out of reality. I even knew I was out of reality because I was just all up here and all in this sort of fantasy world, to escape what was really happening. And then that's when the podcast idea came about because I was listening to podcasts. I started listening to podcasts on adoption. And then the first adoption podcast I listened to was in America, called Adoption Now. And I was like, this I couldn't relate to it. I couldn't connect in with it. It was just there were some stories that I could connect in with, but then there's others, and I just yeah, it wasn't really resonating with me. And then I jumped on a podcast, mental health podcast with a friend down at Maroubra, and just told them about what had happened and how I was diagnosed with bipolar, and then got into the mental health space for a little bit, and then I just felt heavy. I don't know. Um, I'm sure many people have experienced grief, but it is you're not depressed, it's grief. It's like a separate, I don't know. The doctor thought I had to be medicated for the rest of my life, and I challenged that. Um, because bipolar is something usually that people get diagnosed with at a very young age. And I was 35 when this happened. And I just thought, no, 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 he's put two and two together and gone, okay, I've told him that my birth father has bipolar, so therefore I've automatically got it. And I was really quite angry and upset about that. Um, Even though I was like, oh, well, that actually does make sense. So I better just take the medication and then just see how I go. But I haven't taken the medication since, and it's been like 5 years. So I definitely 100% know that I don't have it. But during that time, yeah, the podcast idea came out. It was probably one of many ideas that I had because that's what I was experiencing. I was experiencing symptoms of bipolar, which was mania. I had like ideas coming out the yin yang just to try and make me feel something other than grief. And this one stuck. This podcast idea stuck, and I just started telling people about it because I thought if I keep it inside and I don't tell people, then who's going to keep me accountable? Who's going to say, "Oh, how's that podcast idea going? Are you going to do like what's happening with it?" Or I needed like a push to get it started, and initially I thought, well, I'll start writing my story. And so I started writing my story down. And that was, yeah, that. And then my best friend, who is an actor, an author, and coach, she said that she would interview me. And it was in my house, and I was just sitting on the floor, really raw, off the cuff, like hardly prepared. And just came out as it was. I haven't revisited that episode. I'm too embarrassed to. But yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And because my father passed away, my foster mum passed away, my grandfather passed away, all in the same space. All of my anchors just kind of came down. And I thought I just wanted a way to honor my experience and honor these people who've helped me throughout my life that are now not here anymore. And a lot of my pop had given me some money before when he died, and I've because it's self-funded my podcast, so I've used a lot of that for to run this podcast, and it's just yeah, I just think it's a great way of honoring them, putting my story forward, having the confidence to own my story, but then also like allowing or inviting people and encouraging people that as uncomfortable as it is and as scary and vulnerable and emotional it is, it's a big roller coaster, but there is a platform like yours and mine that is safe and it can provide the opportunity for positive growth and development. And a lot of the people that that I've interviewed have come back, and I've like connected with them, time and time again, and keep track of their lives. And they've either gone into the adoption space, themselves, or they're like, oh my gosh, like since I was interviewed and I was able to share my story, I've done this, and that feels really good. That feels really important. And I know we're kind of a bit of a niche topic, and it's very contentious and challenging, to try and solve what's happening now. Um, it's still you and I, we're part of like we're part of the whole package. We're part of the whole solution. And I'm really happy to be a part of it, and um, I'm really glad that I pursued it.
Hmm.
Because to not like the feeling of not doing it was more uncomfortable than the feeling of pursuing it. So if I stop, the feeling of thinking about, oh, if I stopped this podcast and didn't do anymore, I would feel very discontent. I'd feel very restless.
Hmm.
But the fact that, when I am in doubt, or when I'm down about whether I'm doing it right, whether I'm doing it justice, whether I, might get an email from someone or a message, and they'll say, "Oh, I've just found your podcast. It's amazing. I've listened to it the whole way up to Byron, and I'm going to become like," and those sorts of things keep me going. Um, yeah, those sorts of things sort of nudge me along.
Yeah. It's another little crossover we have is this podcast started in 2020. It was just an idea to reach more people across Queensland who couldn't access our service face to face. But my adoptive father, died in January that year, and it ended
Oh,
up being
what?
it
Are you
ended up
serious?
I'm serious. I was very close to him. Yeah, he was someone who saved me, I guess, in my life. And so the podcast, I could dive into it during COVID, because it was during COVID. After that, just a few months later, we were in that COVID. And I don't know how I would have gone with my grief had I not had this to pour myself into. Um,
Wow.
yeah. And yeah, like you, like at the beginning, you have an idea of what you think it might be, but then the things that it ends up being, and the people that tell you what it did for them to be on it or to hear it or something, it ends up being much more than what you expected, and you're building, like us, you're building a body of stories that are very important, that really tell the real experiences of people, and that's important. It's really important to have that monument, because we've lost a lot in adoption. We lose a lot, and it's important to have a monument to that loss, because society doesn't really create a space for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I think all of our voices combined is really important, and to get the full rainbow of everyone's different experiences, but we're all sort of joined together
yeah,
in it as well.
yeah.
Um,
So, first of all, people can find your podcast where?
on all platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
all platforms. I'm on Instagram as well, to get the latest updates and, images of the people that I've interviewed, same as you, really.
Yeah.
And I'm mainly on Instagram, and then it kind of goes to Facebook, and but I don't really use X. Um, so yeah, so you can find me on
Yeah.
Instagram. You can reach out if you want to get in touch with me, and if you want to listen to any of the episodes, or share your story, I would be more than happy to have any of your anyone listening to to come on. It would be great, really amazing.
So, what message would you like to give others who are navigating their own complicated adoption experiences and searching for their own truth? Is there anything that you'd like to leave them with? Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom, gosh.
I
I'm not very good at the words of wisdom.
think
I'm
you
not
might
sure.
be.
Just kind of like comes in sometimes I call myself like a one-hit wonder. So I just have like bursts of like brilliance, and then like the rest is just me waffling on. But no, I think I might just, yeah, keep it short and sweet, and just say that that adoption and family is complex. And I've worked out that your identity can be fluid. And we can find healing in sharing and understanding our stories. Um, and it is about knowing your past. It is important to know your past, super important. But your past doesn't define you. It doesn't have to define you. Um, it and it can maybe um, understanding your past and knowing that you don't have to be defined by it, but it also can help shape where you go next.
See, wise words. Nadia, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Thank you so much, Jo.
thank you for sharing your personal journey. I know it's going to be something that will resonate with so many listeners. And this was a long one. So thank you for staying with me. I know it's going to be tiring for you today. It's been a real privilege.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It was such a great thing to do. And yeah, I'm sure I will sort of keep you updated on how I'm going after this interview. And then, yeah, and we'll do the exact same thing for you.
I'll be in the hot seat.
You'll be in the hot seat. Absolutely. I cannot wait.
So for anyone tuning in, just remember that every adoption experience is unique and it's never too late to begin your own journey of exploration. And if you're looking for more resources, support, or simply a space to share, Jigsaw Queensland is here to help. And if you'd like to support the podcast, leave us a review, share the podcast, or let us know what you think by emailing or calling us, because we do love to hear from you. And if you have a story that you'd like to share with us and you'd like to be interviewed for the podcast, just jump onto the main podcast page of the Jigsaw Queensland website and complete the prospective guest form that you'll find there. And just note that Adopt Perspective can be listened to by people all over the world. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.